Good evening, Danvers. My name is Mark Zubarek, and welcome to the Topics of the Town News, January 27th, 2022. I have a welcome to our local news broadcast reported by Danvers News, the commentators, and meant for Danvers residents. We sometimes have to expand our coverage because we are not totally independent town, either in the state of Massachusetts or the United States. However, our focus will always be on local issues. Just as a reminder, today is Holocaust Remembrance Day. 77 years ago, the camps in Poland and Germany and other areas were invaded by our troops to release the prisoners that were there, the Jewish prisoners that were there in the concentration camps. That was 77 years ago. We have to be very cognizant of what's going on. And this was a very good reminder today for our viewers. Today, I'd like to show you a clip that I have been using for several shows. The voices, our voices, will change the world. So we need to show that clip, David. I would appreciate it. This clip is very, very timely to what's going on in our society. Our highlights of this show will be in 4 segments, and we'll use one segment at a time. But segment 1 will be to start the update of the Selectmen's meeting that was held 2 weeks ago, I believe, a week ago at least. Second segment will be Corona effects in Danvers today and in the future. Segment 3 will consist of the resident concerns regarding the Danvers School Department, specifically the school committee meetings. And then if we have time, we'll have the 4th segment, which is resident concerns regarding the Beverly Airport expansion and outpouring of noise complaints, noise control committee accomplishments, and commission involvement. The agenda and opinions are solely by the topics of the town news, the host, and we do not have any commentators today, but we normally do. So just to heads up in regard to our commentators, today I have invited 2 individuals that have been very vocal in regard to the school issues, and that was Mark Smith and Sandy Franciscini. So they will be coming to the show next week, which is on February 3rd, which is next Thursday. There's things that have come up, personal, and I understand that, and we will reschedule their appearance. So segment 1, which is the start of the update of Selectmen's meeting. Accomplishments. One of the key things that we should be aware of is that town meeting elections, town elections, are being held in May, and the nomination papers and the authorization to put individual town meeting members' names on the ballot are open on February 1. So we have a town race for 1 school committee member, which is vacant right now, which will be vacant, and 2 selectmen positions, and all of the 149, I believe, town meeting members, because everyone is going to be on the ballot, and the highest vote getter will be assigned to the 3-year, 2-year, and 1-year terms. The other thing that has been happening with the Selectmen's meetings is that they have initiated a committee to permit the town manager to impose this Cpa tax. Selectmen announced a plan for another tax increase called the Cpa Community Preservation Tax, I call it. The 2.5 override that was defeated by voters in 2015 and 2016. This approach is called lobbying for more funds to spend on pet projects. Here we go again, another pick in our pockets. When will this stop? Now, I have a clip, David, that you can put on, and in America, they call it lobbying, which this lobbying for the tax increase is happening. But everywhere else in the world, they call it bribery and corruption. So we do not need another tax to be imposed on our residents. This maneuvering by a town manager committee is a method to extract another $1 million to $2 million from our residents and not manage the budget properly. Where does the budget reflect all these increases? Now, we're awaiting the budget preparation and submittal to the town voters, basically, at the town meeting. We need to first collect the $1 million we are leaving on the table at the Beverly Airport. The airport has been non-responsive to any updates in regards to what's going on with the airport because there's a new master plan that has been presented, and all of a sudden all the comments that have been submitted are being thrown out and basically not considered at all. The last item that I have put on this list is Municipal Light Board. As you remember, last January, there was a $7.50 fee that was included in your bill. That $7.50 fee was supposed to compensate for the lack of funds that are required to service the electric grid and our services that we provide. The thing is that last week, I believe, they have increased the service fee. They have not increased the service fee, but they have increased the fees that they impose for maintenance by 3%. So basically what they have done is they have switched, bait and switch of a increase that they wanted to include, but now they're increasing the rates as well. So the Municipal Light Board I have not been able to attend those meetings, and they are in a secluded location at the Municipal Light Board or electric building. And that meeting is a public meeting, but it's not being televised or even considered to be viewed by the public. Now, we need to demand that that meeting be televised on DCAT, because that is a $40 million expense that we as residents pick up for our electric utilities. Now, the utilities are great. The function of the electric division is good. We have not had any issues. However, the management of that organization is under the direction of the town manager, and it is not being publicly viewed. So we need to make some phone calls and make sure that DCAT records and presents that meeting, so there will be some transparency in regard to these decisions that they are making. Okay, so now that concludes the Selectmen's update. Now the other update that I had is I had a invited guest, Mark Smith and Sandy, who were going to explore the presentations that Mark Smith has been very diligently trying to present to the school committee and to the Board of Health in regards to the consequences of our vaccines and our masks that have been imposed on us. My perception about the discourse regarding the coronavirus efforts on our children, families, residents, and citizens of Danvers has not wavered since the announcement of the shutdowns and restrictions which we accepted since the initial infections. I want to hear other views from our residents. So therefore, in February 2020, this whole infection virus decision was made by the federal, state, and local governments. And I have heard of Mark Smith's attempts to share his knowledge and viewpoints at school committee meetings and at the health board meetings. In every case, he was marginalized and shut down during the attempts to present his views. He made too much sense for our town manager appointed committees that we are facing. Well, this program will facilitate the opportunity that the town boards will not. He was not able to participate today and will be available on our next show scheduled for February 3rd, 2022. So I have his presentation here, but I think this is something that he needs to do because he has been very diligent about preparing the data and the information and the consequences of the actions that our town hall and our Board of Health have imposed on us. So one thing that I want to do is, David, if we can throw up our new clip, and what we need to do is understand what's really going on. When the people fear their government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. That was a quote from Thomas Jefferson 250, almost 300 years ago. And the thing that gets to me is that this quote is so appropriate right now because every single person, and I include many of my relatives, my children, my friends and relatives, that they are being treated with tyranny by our government because they are trying to impose these views on us, and we need to resist. Now, there's a very good clip that I picked up, and it's the Mother Bear's Coronavirus Pandemic Lessons. And this is a clip of a bear with her cubs. And this is where I was going to introduce Sandy Franciscini. She is a very outspoken and was one of the parents calling for the resignation of the superintendent of schools and the school committee members. David, if we can throw up Mother Bear, this is This is a clip that I used back in 2020. The mother bear known as Mink, along with her cub born this year in a West Lebanon, New Hampshire backyard on April 7th. Nothing wrenches the mind away from the pandemic quite like realizing you may have stepped between a mother bear and her cubs. And this was very evident at the school committee meeting in August, that probably 25 parents and mothers came out and demanded answers to the questions in regards to the issues that have been happening in the Danvers school system. Her emergence from hibernation a few weeks ago with a lustrous coat and 3 playful cubs in tow offers us all the inspiration for surviving anything, including the pandemic and the shutdown of so much in life, and the finding our bearings in the uncertain times ahead. This was a quote that I used back in May of 2020. And there's a total abuse of our residents, citizens, and our ratepayers and taxpayers in Danvers. All house arrests and quarantines are imposed as voluntary, and we are voluntarily obedient in our elected authorities, dictators, who are telling us that we abandon our liberties and religious commitment. We are dictated to stay in hiding in our bunkers without means of earning a living and feeding our families. We are held hostage in our own homes with no end in sight. We are under martial law and don't even know it. Massachusetts and the town of Danvers is now a police state. This was a statement that I made in May of 2020, and it still rings true right now. We were told that the real estate taxes can be delayed, but no later than June 1, 2020. Our relief is not even going to be realized. Selectmen did a lot of pounding of their chests during the 2021 budget review hearings. Not one selectman asked for a reduction to the tax burden on the 25,000 residents in the town of Danvers. We have to ask why our jobs are not essential, but our elected and appointed government elites are essential. Where is the leadership of our elite elected and appointed officials? They want all of us to become pets of government by accepting federal funded bribes to be obedient and submissive to our government. The edicts did not come only from the governor, but also were issued by the mini dictators, the town manager with endorsement of the Board of Selectmen. Where are our elected leaders? They are hiding. They're still hiding. The Massachusetts residents from many of the 351 cities and towns have demonstrated that the State House and Governor Baker's residents demanding a stop to the house arrest and demanding a return to our jobs. Give back our freedoms. I've attended many of those demonstrations that were in Swampscott, basically, in front of Governor Baker's house. Now, as you know, recently Governor Baker finally decided not to run for re-election because I think he's had enough of this. So if we go on further, he has dedicated his time to allowing the mini dictators in our towns and cities to impose the restrictions that he was not willing to impose anymore. Mark Kalea, our health inspector, was invited to present the town's views and initiatives already implemented. I asked Mark to explain the legality of any actions taken by the town manager in support of illegal and unconstitutional actions by our governor, Dictator Baker. No response to my invitation. Mark may be asking for permission from the town manager, and I bet you that's what he did, and he was refused. Now, Mark has left since then. We've had a new health director that was hired back in 2021, I believe. And now he's gone as well because he had enough of this dictatorship that's going on. So now we are in search for a new health department director. Topics of the town news reported on resignations of the new health director who did not cooperate with the appointing authority, the town manager. Why did he resign, and what was he even placed in an untenable position with our management actions? Did he fail, or did the town management fail Ade, who was the replacement for Mark? No one is willing to comment on this matter. Here we again sweep this issue under the rug. This is the Danvers way. So I presented a very interesting song that I was not able to play as a song, but I have the theme of the song. And this is who made up all the rules. We followed them like fools, believed them to be true, don't care to think them through. And I'm sorry, so sorry. I'm sorry it's like this. I'm sorry, so sorry. I'm sorry we do this. And it's iconic, and it's ironic too, because what we tend to do is act on what they say, and then it is that way. Who are they? Where are they? How they can possibly know all this? Who are they? Where are they? How can they possibly know all this? Do you see what I see? Why do we live like this? Is it because it's true that ignorance is bliss? Who are they? Where are they? How do they know all this? And I'm sorry, so sorry. I'm sorry it's like this. These verses are so appropriate of what's been happening to our people in this town, in this state, in this country. Now we're finding out that a lot of these impositions of restrictions and restrictions in healthcare are becoming true, that they should not have happened, because this is a virus, and this is a virus that can be treated. Now, what I have said in that May 5th, 2020 show that I had is that I pray to God that this was not a biological attack by a foreign country on the rest of the world. And that is becoming more and more appropriate. So now, what we must come back to normal. Public demands immediate reversal of current policies and admit that the virus is. It is a biological warfare test on what the public will accept. This is big government attacking our constitutional rights. These constitutional rights have been eroded for many years under several administrations. It accelerated with 9/11 and the Patriot Act, and now we are all becoming sheep going to slaughter. Federal government is handing out payments to individuals and corporations to keep peace in population. Socialism is going on in front of our eyes. Now, one of the things that I wanted to bring up is we had a very clandestine emergency meeting by the Board of Health. The Board of Health in this town is held by 3 appointed individuals. The town manager is, he has 3-year terms. As they are volunteers, their authorities are carried out by the staff of the Health Division and the Department of Planning and Human Services. The Board of Health generally meets on the first Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. in the town manager's conference room in Town Hall. The members are Dr. Thomas McLaughlin, and I know Tom very well. He's the chairman, or he was the chairman. Now I guess it's Dutrochet Joko. He's a pharmacist, and at that time we had Edmund Kowalski, who was a good friend of mine, and now we have a third individual. I don't even have her name. But the Public Health Division of the Department of Land Use and Community Services, now listen to this, carries out the day-to-day activities of the Board of Health. Their duties are generally described in Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 111, Section 122, which states in part, the Board of Health shall examine into all nuisances, sources of filth, and causes of sickness within the town or on board of vessels with the harbor of such town, which may, in its opinion, be injurious to the public health, shall destroy, remove, or prevent the same as the case may require, and shall make regulations for the public health and safety relative thereto, and to articles capable of containing or conveying infection, or categories or of creating sickness brought into the conveyed from the town or into from the vessel. The duties are carried out through the various programs to promote public health, including public health nursing and wellness programs, environmental health investigations, and permitting, as well as the control of both wild and domestic animals. Where does the Board of Health have the authority to control us as individuals? It is unconstitutional. The Board of Health has been holding meetings in remote locations, remote meetings, because they don't want to hear from the public anymore. The meetings have to start to be open meetings, because these are appointed committees, and they have some limited authority. But now what we're finding out is that the town manager and the Board of Selectmen are giving that authority and directing the Board of Health to impose these restrictions. Now, you know that I have been against these restrictions and these regulations for the last 2 years, and it has not changed. The issues are still here. We have not permitted our medical facilities to treat the virus that occurs. We have been imposed by vaccines. Vaccines, as Mark Smith will tell you next week, are not as accurate in treating, and it's a treatment, it's not a vaccine itself. So why are we treating our population in such a manner? This is socialism in its infancy, and it's happening, and we are allowing it to happen. So David, We have another section here with the mother bear, and I love this picture because this is where families are now in our community that are broken apart because they're afraid of their own shadows. They have to start coming out just like the mother bear is taking her cubs out of hibernation. We need to demand our freedoms back. What happened to the independent Danvers education system? This is, recently, the governor has removed himself from imposing restrictive actions because the past actions taken were not legal and directly impacted our freedoms. The governor now wants to use local community boards to continue the state's illegal actions. He has now invoked the Board of Education to impose this illegal action. When will the Danvers School Committee declare our independence from these restrictions and the control of freedoms of our students and parents? Parents do not want any more physical constraints on their children. The last 2 years basically have been lost in our education system. Monumental changes do not always occur with fanfare and explosive action. Sometimes they take place gradually, and it is a result of actions that initially appear relatively inconsequential, but develop into extraordinary alterations in the very fabric of society. The school committee has abdicated their primary mission to educate our students. Education has taken a step backwards because we have become slaves of directed actions by our appointed officials. We are being trained to become isolated and fearful of large group gatherings and public meetings. As you see, during the last 6 months, basically, there has been outpouring of the mother bears coming out and defending their children. And we should all stand up and defend our population in this town. Our students have been cheated out of 1.5 years of education, basically, because they have been gone to a remote education system. Remote learning has failed. Parents had to rely on tutors and homeschooling. Why did the school population decrease this year? How did we measure our performance? How did we spend the taxes on our children's education? Why were private schools able to operate as usual during the apparent pandemic? Why are the Danvers School Department administrators so concerned why the Essex Tech attracts so many students year after year? Because Danvers schools do not attract students to stay in our system. Now, at the last school committee meeting this week, on Monday, there was a very interesting discussion in regards to why are we sending so many students from the town of Danvers to the Essex Tech. Essex Tech has a mission to provide an education that includes agriculture and technical skills. Now, we do not have those opportunities in our high school because that was a decision made back in 10 years ago, that when the school at Essex Tech was built, it would attract as many students from as many communities. There's 51 communities that participate in the Essex Tech programs. There are, I think, 1,500 students at this time. So the thing is that Danvers students have found a way to get a better education in Essex Tech than in Danvers school system. So the question should be raised to the school committee and to the school department, why are we not keeping our students in our system? Some students have reported to me and to others that they don't feel that they're getting an education in our school system. So now we have a situation at the school department right now where the school committee has given medical leave to the superintendent, who has been there for approximately 22 years, I believe. And she is on medical leave. But in their wisdom, the school committee has elected to have the two assistant superintendents, one for business and one for, I guess, education. And why do we have two assistant superintendents? This should have been a change for the time being with an interim superintendent outside of our school system. Our two assistant superintendents are part of the problem. And we need to address that, and we need to address that with the school committee. So no wonder the parents are upset. Education policies regarding curriculum content and expectations have focused on critical race theory, indoctrination, health and sex education, and social feelings, and not on true educational subjects. Now, I have been corrected in many ways that these programs are not true academic programs. The focus on critical race theory, indoctrination, health and sex education, LGBTQ programs are interwoven into existing curriculum that is being taught in our school system. And the thing is that they're not under those particular names, but they're in social services that they provide to our students. Who authorized these policies and activities? What steps will we take to improve the current level of education and testing? I have raised the issue in regards to the MCAS scores that were reported in this last fall, and there's been no response. They are blaming everything on COVID because that's what the issues are. Where is our education process going? Now, is the school department assuming the responsibility of bringing up our children? Whose children are these? The state, or are they our children? This reminds me of communism. Education and welfare of our students has always been a primary objective in Danvers. Today, we have too many administrators, nurses, and psychologists who have falsely assumed the responsibility of bringing up our children. Now, there may be some parents that like that, but I do not. And they should not be assuming that responsibility. Where are the line teachers and parents in this formula? School departments are responsible for education and not for social development and social experimentation. Now, going to our masks, we had meetings back in August, September. Masks are not medically required. The governor has not indicated that he is in support of masks for students. Our local health directors are instructed by our local governments to recommend these masks. These recommendations are not based on credible statistics for Danvers. The school committee must not succumb to the mask control recommended and vote against the mask for the health and welfare of our children. If someone wants to wear a mask, then they should have the right to do so. But in regard to the masks, Immediately after that meeting we had with the school committee, the school committee did not take a vote whether to impose the masks or not. They relied on the Board of Education for the state of Massachusetts because they knew that was coming down. So now we have appointed officials dictating what our school system is going to be mandated to do. Our school committee members need to focus their activities to educating our students and not on controlling the social aspects of our school population. What are we afraid of? The China virus or the retaliation by the health department and the teachers' unions? The parents must take back their rights and resume the role of bringing up the children, and our schools committee must rely on input by parents who entrust their children in your care. Well, the school committee took action. Basically, they sent it to a medical leave for the superintendent, and the school committee members have not taken any action in regard to the concerns that parents had in the August and in the 2020 issues that have been happening. All these mandates are recommendations which need to be integrated with personal responsibility. People are afraid to complain because our elected and appointed officials are busy focusing on the social control of our population and now our students. We must restore the respect for our students and tax-paying residents and give them the right to choose. They need the freedom to choose not to wear masks or take the vaccine. If the administration and the teachers are not vaccinated, then they should be. Can we move on and provide the best possible education to our students without all these restrictions and social engineering that has evolved? Recent medical leave of the superintendent and the installation of 2 assistant superintendents is a deflection of the issues raised in the 2020 and August of 21 committee meetings. No answers have been provided. Now, David, if you can just put on the clip of my very friend Albert Einstein. And this I'll speak to I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots. Albert was so right, because what we are relying on is the internet, the Facebook, the TikTok, the all kinds of different social media that we are trying to impose on our residents. Now, we need open meetings, and I want to congratulate the school committee for the last Monday's meeting, which was held in the Holton Richmond. And it was open to the public, but the public was not very allowed to participate because they limit the comments from the public to 3 minutes. Now, I have not introduced my friends here today, but these friends of mine, these turkeys that I've been using for years now, these 3 turkeys are the Board of Health. That's another meeting that is being remotely held because the Board of Health does not want to listen to the general public of their wishes and concerns in regard to this pandemic and to this imposition of masks and vaccines. Now, I have in front of me here a COVID-19 Public Health Emergency Regulation that was issued on December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. Emergency meeting. Now, the one thing that this emergency meeting did not discuss, as far as I know, and I have the minutes of the meeting and the dictate that they have prepared for us, and I know that this Board of Health State of Affairs has been questioned by residents in our town. There was an inquiry made in regard to why was this meeting not announced, and why is this meeting not being held in public. So there is a open meeting law violation that's been filed, and I'm still awaiting the response from the Board of Health. But I understand that at their remote meeting that they held last week, they had a executive session to discuss how to respond to the inquiry by the citizens of Danvers in regards to their illegal meetings that they have held. Now, the Board of Health, they're respected individuals, but they are more fearful than our children. Now, the millennials have become so fearful of these dictates that they are afraid to let go of this situation. The pandemic is over, guys. The issues are how to return back to normal. And I don't know what normal is anymore, because our families have been affected, our residents have been affected, our community has been affected. Now, the Board of Health needs to respond to this inquiry, and they need to respond very quickly because there's another board meeting coming up. So the one thing that I want to do is make sure that we respond to these restrictions that have been placed on us. And masks don't do a damn thing. And it's been documented over and over again. And there's a medical emergency that has been implemented on our citizens because the doctors are no longer living up to their Hippocratic oath. They are being dictated by CDC and FDA and government not to treat individuals because I don't know. I'm just wondering whether this is population control or not. So this is the component of my presentation for this program, but I have a last segment which I didn't know if I was going to get to. Segment 4, resident concerns regarding the Beverly Airport expansion and outpouring of noise complaints, Noise Control Committee accomplishments, and Commission involvement. Here we go again. Another remote meeting held after 1 year since the official open meeting that was held in January at the Beverly Airport Commission. They held a remote meeting because they didn't want to hear from the general public, and they have decided not to decide anything. They haven't communicated the status of the master plan and how long this master plan is going to be in effect and how much money they are requesting from the FAA. According to the information that we have been gathering, there's $20 million that's in contention for a grant to expand the runways. There has been no communication or monthly meetings held for 9 months now. Danvers Select Board has delayed any update by our Danvers commissioners. They have been too busy to respond. Assessed valuation of the 170 acres of the Danvers airport property is worth over $1 million in real estate taxes. Why are we leaving the revenue on the table? Our commissioners that we have appointed are not doing a damn thing for the town of Danvers because they're not even responding to the questions and the comments that have been submitted. The Airport Manager Commission and the Beverly Mayor are waiting out this issue and will come through with the dictate, take it or leave it. They wanted this expansion and have filed the FAA $20 million grant application, now awaiting results. Size matters. Anticipate larger and noisier cargo and passenger planes. In anticipation of Amazon distribution currently planned in Salem and in Peabody. It is anticipated that Boeing 737s, Bombardiers, Embraer E-170, or even an Airbus A200 may land on the current 5,601-foot runway already existing. Now they want to increase it by 600 feet. Beverly has not totally ignored noise complaints. Complaints and outcry has fallen on deaf ears. For months, residents finally gave up calling the tower. Need to have FAA and BVY management reduce the intensive use and to become a good neighbor for all residents. The BVY Airport Commissioner Chairman organized a neighborhood Danvers, Wenham, and even Beverly Noise Committee and is working to address the noise issues. However, the expansion of the airport is basically ignoring the fact that the airport is going to get noisier and closer to the residents in the Danvers perimeter of the airport grounds. Now they're even talking about expanding and building additional aircraft hangars facilities on the Danvers side. So we need to be very creative in trying to contact some of these individuals. Seth Moulton has been contacted with a letter, and Norm Abbott, Regional Director, he was contacted at 978-531-1669. This is the Seth Moulton's office, and Seth Moulton was involved in analyzing the concerns and the complaints that have been filed as a result of the master plan being imposed. We need to send letters to Federal Aviation Administration. This is in Washington, D.C. I have a phone number for them, 781-238-7400, and that's the Aviation Noise Ombudsman. Norm Abbott can be reached at the 21 Front Street, Salem, Mass. 978-831-2867. Jeffrey DiCarlo, Aeronautics Administrator, MassDOT, Logan Office Center, 1 Harborside Drive. He can be reached at 617-412-3680. Now, I understand that Jeffrey DiCarlo has been very receptive in hearing comments, but Mass Aeronautics doesn't have very much to do with the $20 million FAA grant. So when will Mayor Cahill finally get involved? He needs a call at the Beverly City Hall. Now I understand that there's a new lady that's a chairman of the council, and I intend to give her a call and communicate with her in regard to this, because these are issues that need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed promptly. Now, the attitude from the Airport Commission is, we'll wait these people out. It's going to get done, and nobody cares. The Beverly Airport Commission doesn't give a damn. So now what we need to do is we need to have the residents put in a petition to rescind the granting of the real estate tax abatement to the Beverly Airport and receive the $1 million back and send our commissioners out to Beverly. Maybe that's where they should be, because they're not doing anything for the town of Danvers. Our selectmen are not doing anything for the town of Danvers because they're in love with the Beverly Airport. Now, residents in the perimeter of the airport are facing the noise levels, and they are being ignored as well. You make a phone call to the FAA, to the tower, and nobody even answers the phone anymore. So we need some action, and we need some action now. So right now, what I like to do is I like to conclude my presentation, and I did accomplish all 4 segments. So thank you very much for letting me be here. But I'd like to thank my turkeys, the Board of Health turkeys, and each one of them has a name. So we'll use the turkeys again the next show, because that issue is not going away. The Board of Health is not also receptive to the comments from the town of Danvers residents. All they listen to is the town manager. And because that's who appoints the Board of Health. So we need to make a change in there, and we need to demand a revision to the Board of Health as well. Now, I have had communications with the town nurse, and we've talked about these issues, and I've asked for statistics of why are we imposing these mask mandates, and what are the statistics of people getting infected or being hospitalized. And I have not received that information yet. Now, the key to this is how many of these people that are infected or hospitalized have died. I don't get that answer. There doesn't seem to be any. So we need to ask questions. The town government, with its appointed commissions and boards of health, need to respond to the questions of the residents. Now, I have invited the Board of Health to come on the show, and let's talk about these things, because these things are never discussed. They are discussed in the back room of the town hall. So I want to thank you for listening, and I want to give you a heads up for February 3rd. We'll have Mark Smith and Sandy to come on the show, because at that time we want to discuss the Board of Health and the criteria for the school committee of why are they imposing these regulations. Now, some of these testing regulations are changing, and they rightfully so. So we need to make sure that they hear our voices, and our voices need to be heard. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your time, and please respond to the questions that have been raised to our residents. Our residents need these answers. So thank you very much, and I will be back February 3rd with a new stack of papers like I have here. And the one thing that I want to do is make sure that we go and apply for the positions of town meeting members and the school committee and the selectmen. Go and vote in May. Thank you very much. Good night, Danvers.